And away we go. Alright, so in regards to what me and the lads have sent in the group chat, just showing what's in our pipelines, social media, trying to get engagement out of us. There isn't much, really. The only thing that's been sent, as of the last time I recorded a podcast episode, I sent a YouTube short by HR Vizak, the title being Morocco are now AFCON champions. So let's have a listen, shall we? If it lets me.
I genuinely thought Fabrizio Romano got hacked when I saw this news. Yes, Morocco have officially been crowned AFCON champions after Senegal have forfeited the match, giving Morocco the 3-0 victory on paper. And although they lift the trophy then, Mane and Co.'s victory have been stripped. This has to be one of the craziest things I've ever seen in the world of football. Even if you think Senegal should have not walked off the pitch like that, how can you just change the trophy winner 2 months later? Yup, them walking off the pitch is essentially what allowed the title winner to change. But if those are the stern rules, why did you not just sort everything out earlier? We all saw what happened in the match. Morocco had the perfect chance to win after Senegal walked off the pitch. A penalty in the last possible seconds, and Brahim Diaz completely flopped it. It's a horrible look for African football. This confederation are already known to be a mess, but this completely questions the legitimacy of any future tournaments as well. I mean, every African tournament from here on out, you shouldn't be celebrating too soon. From now on, give it 2 months before the parades begin. Even if you want to argue that this was the correct decision, it shouldn't take so long for a major switch like that. It just feels wrong, and even as football fans, it feels like we've been robbed of some special moments, even when it's not our own country. That's just my immediate opinion, though. Let me know what you guys think.
He said what I would have said. He said it for me. Why now is this decision being made? Why not sort this debacle out the moment when it happened, the AFCON final? And given what has been done, and the choices that have been made by the Continental Federation, and whatever's been favoured to one of the teams at that year's AFCON, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. I'll be honest, I don't know much, nor may I pay attention to soccer football in Africa. I know for sure that it is certainly a big deal and a major event for many people around the world to pay attention to AFCON, especially if heritage traces back to one of the African countries. You won't hear or see stories like this anywhere else. And that's not to say this is common in Africa. It does give a very bad look for soccer football in Africa. There is nothing else I could say. What this lad in the video I just played for you had said, he is spot on. There is no arguing. There is nothing to justify these decisions. And even when there are decisions made by the Senegal national team walking off the pitch, why not sort or give the verdict then instead of now? Why now are we hearing about this? How can something take 2 months? Unless, in the case of complicated evidence, circumstances, that's very hard to pinpoint or get an understanding of. Even then, I'd assume cases like this should take a couple weeks. 2 months is too long. It shouldn't take 2 months to deliver a verdict on any investigation or any competition outcome. It's a joke. Imagine something like this had happened anywhere else in the world. Yes, we're gonna see outrage. What are the authorities, officials, or other staff members going to do about that? Meh, it's whatever. It could happen. And whoever's in charge can just brush it off. Don't have to worry about a single problem. And if there is legal trouble, they have the money to afford the best lawyers in the world. They can get themselves out of this. Africa is just the start. These are testing waters that we're seeing right now. And we all know for sure there will be a handful of people, at least, that will make a fuss on decisions like this, not just in sports. In any negotiation, any verdict, any investigation, and any story that is getting all the buzz, the viral publicity engagement. What happens if this has happened? What would happen if a case like this or another major corruption-esque scandal taking place in East Asia, the Americas, somewhere in Europe? Would the reactions there be the same as it is for in Africa? That is the question. Who is in favour? Who is trying to get the better deal or outcome out of this? That is the question. It will take a while to get to that point. That's just how things are right now. Of course, there's going to be a court case from the Senegal Football Federation. They're going to argue that Sadio Mane, one of the players, tried to persuade all the Senegalese players to not walk off the pitch. I'm not sure what the exact reason is for not walking off the pitch. I know for sure that walking off the pitch will cause some kind of trouble in regards to the game. Being out of play, calling a forfeit. I'm not going after the Senegal national team. These are elements of this story that everyone, if not most people, will point to as being the reason why Morocco was handed the win, despite the fact that at the time the game happened, the final in Morocco for AFCON, Senegal won 1-0. Senegal scored one goal and they won the whole thing, and that was it. Only 2 months later, there was a verdict. No, the Senegal forfeited that match for some reason. Morocco has won. How did Morocco win 3-0? In the event of one team forfeiting a game for circumstances of their own interpretation or understanding, the other team that hasn't forfeited the match will be awarded 3 goals, regardless of them having any chance of scoring a goal to begin with. Even if Morocco scored more than 3 goals, if the match resulted in a forfeit at any point of the game, then Morocco's going to be given 3 goals, and then the team that has forfeited get no goals. That's at least my understanding. So yeah, the soccer football world is going to madness for this one. I wonder what happens next for AFCON. And for the African teams involved in this competition that has now ended just a couple months ago. So yeah, that's just my take on this situation. So now, with all that being said, let's get right into the news. 4chan website fined by OFCOM for failing to protect children from seeing pornography. OFCOM, the UK online safety regulator, has fined the US messaging platform 4chan £520,000 for failing to comply with the Online Safety Act. A lawyer representing 4chan responded to Ofcom's demand with an AI-generated cartoon image of a hamster, stating that 4chan's conduct is protected by the First Amendment in the US. Ofcom said companies are not allowed to sell unsafe content to children in the UK, and the digital world should be no different in protecting youngsters. Now, if anything has to go by with this story, mainly with 4chan, they don't give a damn. They don't give a damn about governments with regulations, following the rules. 4chan will be like, up yours, you melon, and then just go on with their lives. And yeah, that First Amendment rights from the United States is a very, very common argument in regards to freedom of speech, freedom of press, and a third related thing. It's very effective. And a valid point in my opinion. On the other hand, I would also argue in defense of OFCOM, not that I'm on board with anything they say or do. I'm not going to bring up the cases, the points about these young children these days doing the hand gestures, being 6, 7, whatever that is, or even how the effects of social media and just online consumption on their tablets is causing, no, not just using their tablets, watching videos of very colourful characters that overstimulates their minds, which is hence one of the reasons why attention span in young children these days is much shorter than the attention span of the children years prior to this. There's at least that argument I do acknowledge. There is a concern of young children consuming anything online and just watching videos that they're not supposed to. And another thing I will say in regards to observing and knowing what children are watching or consuming online, I'm not gonna bring in I'm not just gonna say that the parents should be the ones. The parents should be responsible for what their children are doing online. It's not the government's job to do that, which is also true. I'm not just gonna say that parents should be very careful and cautious about what their children are doing online, on the internet, and so on. Yet, having the government setting these laws and rules, which is something the parents should be doing, is not the way to go. So back to the story about Ofcom fining 4chan for failing to protect children from seeing pornography. You know, I have an idea. I'm not sure how practical or logistically possible this idea might be. It is an idea nonetheless, and I believe it would be very useful. Likewise, you see ratings for movies that you're about to watch. That if there's a particular number like 12, 15, it shows that you have to be above that age to watch the movie in question. Likewise, the same should be said for social media content, websites, services, commerce, or just anything digital. There should be an age rating that shows that you have to be above this age to watch or use a platform's services or to use the goods from that platform. Then eventually, but again, that would lead into the territory of trying to verify the identity of this person, and then digital ID comes into play. Again, I'm not saying this is going to happen, and I'm not saying this is possible as of yet. I do believe there should be age ratings for platforms, websites, and apps. Likewise, you would see age ratings for movies and television shows. So that way, if they ever parents or caretakers see children going on websites that they shouldn't be because the age rating is showing that, oh, your child is way too young to be using that website, the parents will immediately intervene, get them off, and probably give an hour long or two lecture about the dangers of the website, how anything online is not safe, and you always got to be careful when talking to strangers. Again, in my opinion, may be annoying to have that discussion. It is also important, in my opinion, to have those discussions and be aware of these dangers. That's just me. So yeah, there's a lot to get into with the 4chan platform fined by Ofcom. I'm surprised this hasn't been done sooner. I I would have thought whether or not the Online Safety Act had been in place, Ofcom would have taken action against 4chan sooner. Well, better later than never. At least now we know that OFCOM actually did something with 4chan, and there we go. We now know what that outcome is. It is now a moment of waiting to see what happens next with 4chan. Other than saying, screw you guys, I don't give a damn about your damn rules, and the UK government, looking at ways to ban 4chan for users in the UK to be using the website for whatever purpose. Laws in countries around the world do get very complicated, especially if the laws from two countries contradict each other and the fine print in those laws from the two countries counteract against the other. That gets very messy and quite tricky to follow. It's like trying to get across hot lava without actually touching the lava, finding the right places to step to get to the other side without actually burning your feet. Rapper Afroman wins lawsuit against police over mocking their 2022 raid in viral music videos. Rapper Afroman defeated 7 sheriff's deputies in a court case after they sued him for $3.9 million over songs and videos that mocked a raid on his home. Afroman released an entire album in 2023 titled Lemon Pound Cake that took him at the officers involved in the raid. Afroman's lawyers argued that public officials cannot use the courts to silence criticism simply because it hurt their feelings. I couldn't agree more. I'll be honest, I too was in that similar situation, not calling people out, having my feelings hurt because people were saying stuff about me. I've lived my lesson, and I'm prepared for whatever criticism comes my way. So back to the story about the rapper Afroman winning the lawsuit against police officers for lemon pound cake. I wonder if he would argue his First Amendment rights. That also would have been a good opportunity. However, what's been done has been done. I don't know how else to answer this. If it's just the fact that you can't argue about criticism because someone's feelings got hurt, then too bad. That's life, man. Life is going to be unfair. People are going to be harsh. So yeah, I've learned that lesson the hard way. And you know what? I'm grateful for that. At least now I'm prepared for next time. If it happens next time. Not that I would. I have enough stuff on my plate already. Go with the flow, you know? Yeah, World Happiness Report highlights social media's negative impact, ranks Finland as happiest country. On March 19th, 2026, the Wellbeing Research Centre at the University of Oxford published the World Happiness Report, ranking Finland as the happiest country for the 9th year with a score of 7.764. Researchers said algorithmic feeds and influencer-driven platforms fuel social comparisons. Adolescents spend 2.5 hours daily on social media. And causes vary by region, gender, and socioeconomic status. Evidence indicates life evaluations among under 25s in the US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand dropped by almost 1 full point, with Jan Emanuel Denev saying heavy usage is associated with much lower well-being, but those deliberately off social media also appear to be missing out on some positive effects. Policymakers elsewhere are considering social media restrictions as Australia last year introduced the world's first ban for under 16s, with Denmark, France, and Spain planning similar limits. Nordic dominance persists as Iceland, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway lead while Costa Rica climbed to 4th, based on around 100,000 responses across 147 countries, averaged over 3 years. Yep, we're back on social media again. the negative effect, then howdy who, you know? Actually, no. I don't think people know that. And as for Finland, good for them. Yeah, good for you, Finland. As cold as you are and as how little sunlight you get, you always find a way. I'm just wondering now, how do the Nordic countries, who get much colder weather year round than other countries, well, almost colder weather, very limited sunlight at some point in the year, and yet still be so happy with their lives? I've heard something a while ago on YouTube. There is a town in Norway called Tromsø. The amount of sunlight they get each year, very minimal in the winter. Very minimal in the winter. Yet people in Tromsø are very happy. The reason they say they find the joy in having the cold weather being around them. And you know what? Good for them. Nice to see that there are people in this world try to look at the positives despite all of the negatives that surrounds them. And I believe if other people around the world are like that, maybe not to say that this is going to fix all of the world's problems. At least we can push forward and go on with life at a much safer and mentally stronger capacity than we had been through before. I know it won't be easy for people to be positive, even if they're living in countries in war, there's conflicts, their home is in rubble, and of course the family members are no longer with them anymore. I do acknowledge that problems like that do exist, and it does make living life more challenging for those people. That's not to say that there is hope and there is a chance to make life better for yourself, even when things get bad. I may not know how bad life can get. At least I do know there are people in this world that have it much worse than me. So yeah, that is all I will say, and that's all I know. For sure, there is something that many people can learn from the Nordic countries. Not just in terms of overall happiness, also in just terms of having a positive outlook in the most devastating of circumstances. It is possible. We just have to start small and then build our way up as time goes by. Healthy eating may help keep the brain younger, study suggests. A Mediterranean diet rich in vegetables, berries, nuts, and olive oil could slow down brain aging, according to a long-term study. Experts found the diet was linked to less brain tissue lost over time, especially grey matter, which plays a key role in memory, learning, and decision-making. Those who adhere closely to the diet had slower grey matter shrinkage and ventricular expansion, equivalent to 20% less age-related decline, and 2.5 years of delayed brain aging. Very cool. Very cool. Maybe I should be on a Mediterranean diet. Except, I don't live in the Mediterranean. And even if the weather where I'm at right now does achieve ideal conditions to grow fruits, berries, other food that's needed to grow in such conditions, I'm not sure if there's enough farmland to grow all this food. Surely there will be farmland to grow food at any point. To get a fully, truly Mediterranean diet is to simply go to the Mediterranean. Live in Italy, Malta, Croatia, Greece, Spain, France. I would say Monaco. However, prices in Monaco are crazy expensive. You got to be like at least a millionaire just to get by what most people of working class socio-economic status in the Western world are getting by through at the moment. So yeah, that's all I can think of in that regard. And with studies like this, you can't argue. If it does help you with slowing down your aging, then do it. This is something that I think my family would be very interested in. I think it comes to a point that even they know that the food that people in the UK, the US, most parts in Europe, whatever food they're eating, it's not contaminated and certainly not processed, that last although the latter is mostly true than the other. There are food that people in very developed nations that when they consume those such foods, they contain substances and ingredients that isn't even made for consuming to begin with. Instead, these ingredients are actually being used to manufacture stuff, and it is a material used in many of our everyday products, furniture, and even toys. Shocking. Madness. People will find out when they find out. By that, it would already be too late. Overnight storm in Pakistan's largest city, Karachi, kills at least 15 people and injures. Published in Dawn, March 19th, 2026. Rescue teams said heavy rains and storm winds in Karachi caused at least 15 deaths and injured more than 2 dozen, affecting 7 districts. The Met Office said the rain began at around 9 p.m., affecting nearly all 7 districts of Karachi, with winds up to 90 kilometers per hour, lasting for hours as a westerly weather system moved across Sindh. Measurements up to 11 p.m. indicated Moripur recorded 22 millimeters and DHA Phase 2 15 millimeters, while rainfall in Gulshan, Iqbal, and Clifton disrupted traffic on major roads and uprooted trees and power lines. Karachi officials urged residents to stay indoors and avoid unnecessary travel as municipal bodies and Karachi Water and Sewage Corporation prioritized drainage efforts today. Bodies were shifted to Dr. Ruth Fau Civil Hospital while efforts continued to retrieve others from rubble. Emergency services reported rain and storm across the country, and DIG South Syed Assad Raza described a war collapse in Moach Goth, Baldia town. So firstly, rest in peace to the 15 local Karachi residents in Pakistan who have lost their lives to this severely unfortunate flooding. I send my condolences to their friends and family. So unfortunate. Very sad. Hopefully, officials in Karachi, they recover from this storm. All the infrastructure is not damaged for the most part, and the entire city of Karachi continues to move forward despite the damages. Even when rubble does still float about, I still hope that everyone that is still alive remains safe, and whatever injuries these people have, they will recover. I hope they recover. They certainly will. We still hope that it is still possible for people to recover from this very unfortunate circumstance. Canada has dropped to 25th place in the World Happiness Report after ranking 18th last year, with youth social media use cited as a key factor. The report found that life evaluations among youth in Canada, the US, Australia, and New Zealand have declined significantly over the past decade. Finland ranked as the happiest country for the 9th year in a row, with other Nordic countries also ranking highly. I think I've already said enough about that story. What I will discuss is the fact that Canada has dropped by quite amounts in the World Happiness Report. And of course, surprise absolutely no one, it is social media being the factor to why people are not as happy as they used to be. Whilst as much to the truth that is, there has to be a way. And I'm not just talking about the project that me, Eric, and Shadowminer are working on. I believe a lot of social media platforms should also do their part in limiting how often, how much screen time people use social media. It doesn't have to be a lot. That users are limited to 5 hours of screen time each day on social media. A timer for those users who do exceed screen time on social media far above the health advised average. In that case, those that are above the average screen time on social media, there should be 2-3 hour timer. And then once the timer is up, they can use social media again. Again, if they continue to go over the limit, boom, another timer, 2 to 3 hours is put on those users. I don't want to limit how often people go on social media. If there are negative impacts of social media, which there has to be ways of addressing these issues. I know that there will be people that will argue that having a time limit for social media use, or at least putting a time on those who do exceed social media time usage each day, it limits how much information people get about what goes on in today's world. And that is a very good point. As much bad effects there are to social media, there are also good impacts as well. Again, getting information about what goes on in the world that would usually take a couple days to get around. Also, get an understanding of how people currently live their lives in whichever country these people currently live in. So there has to be some kind of balance to this story in this scenario, in one way or another. Chuck Norris hospitalized in Hawaii after medical emergency. On Thursday, March 19th, TMZ reported that Chuck Norris, 68-year-old actor and martial artist, was allegedly admitted to a local hospital in Kauai, Hawaii, with the story filled from Los Angeles. TMZ sources with direct knowledge reported a medical emergency in Kauai within the last 24 hours led to Chuck Norris's hospitalization. Though the nature is undisclosed, and he remains in good spirits. Earlier this month, Norris posted on March 10th that he shared boxing training footage and celebrated his 86th birthday with social media updates. As outlets pursue the story, Us Weekly has reached out for comment, with Norris's fame from action films and Walker, Texas Ranger, increasing public interest. Norris's career as an actor and martial artist includes credits in action films and Walker, Texas Ranger, shaping how audiences view his health report. Well, I hope Chuck Norris is alright. And whilst Chuck Norris is still physically active, he's still doing martial arts, I think. As the years go by and as we get older, our physicality does decline ever so gradually. So I do hope Chuck Norris is alright. And he will be. How long until he'll be alright is, well, I believe it'll be a challenge. Again, he may be physically active in what he's known for. I've said too much. It'll be very important for Chuck Norris if this is going to be the last time that people are going to see him up and about doing something. So again, for the last time, I hope Chuck Norris is all right and he recovers from whatever is holding him back. Whilst it does mean that he's going to have to be more cautious and observant about his health status, given how physically active he has been over the years, given his experience with martial arts, it makes sense why he is still alive today. The healthier you are, the longer you are likely to live for. So, good on Chuck Norris for making this incredible milestone to live to currently 86 years old. Impressive. Let's see if he can make it to 100. No pressure. It'd be very cool if this was to be achieved. That'd be very cool indeed. HSBC considers 20,000 job cuts over 5 years in AI review. Oh, bugger. HSBC is considering deep cuts that could impact around 20,000 roles, or 10% of its total workforce, over the next 3 to 5 years as part of a plan to accelerate AI adoption and simplify operations. Non-client-facing roles in global service centers are expected to be most affected by the potential cuts, which are still at an early assessment stage. The potential reductions are part of HSBC's medium-term plan, spanning 3 to 5 years, and could include not replacing departing staff and cuts tied to business exits or sales. So firstly, I feel so sorry for the employees at HSBC who are on the verge of losing their jobs because of AI. On the other hand, even when people are saying there is a threat of AI taking our jobs in the coming years, for AI to take a majority of jobs now, as people are working in now, is more or less unlikely. It'd be a decade or two, in my opinion, before a majority of existing jobs that we are working in now are taken over by AI. And out of the jobs that aren't replaced by AI themselves has not been able to take those remaining jobs, as the tasks in completing those jobs in such fields would be impossible for artificial intelligence to complete or be assessed on. I'm also not going to make the case that AI isn't at the verge of replacing, or at least taking over, the existing jobs that we have now. The speed in which AI is taking over whatever jobs that exist now, it will take a few years, very slowly, yet very gradually. And again, not to make the case that AI should replace jobs. Even AI, as advanced as it currently is, and more so in the next few years, there are tasks and aspects of the real world that AI can't do. And thus, AI would then have to rely on humans like us to do tasks for them. This is not to make people feel better about AI taking over existing jobs. It at least gives us closure, knowing that there are potential limitations to artificial intelligence as advanced as current existing AI are. Even if AI does get smarter, which it will, slowly but gradually over the next few years, they're always going to reach a roadblock. And those roadblocks would be elements of the world where we as humans would fill in for those AI. Of course, we're not going to do it for free. And I'm not going to say that we're now heading towards a future where artificial intelligence would be paying us to do tasks for them. If not that scenario, then what's the future of our world coexisting with AI? That is something to think about. All things considering, anyone that's worried for how our world would head towards in the next few years, what you should ask yourself is, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to go on with your life? And are you in a position where you are financially independent from whatever 9 to 5 job you're at, and you're also in a position where you can live life without having to think about what costs are bearing on us and worrying about whatever deadlines are hitting at us to get things done. What are you going to do to ensure that you live a life that you are happy with? And that is it for the episode.